welcome back to the Chop Up, episode 3, I think it is.
I'm not counting.
We got Jordan down here. He's going to help us out today. This is very much in his wheelhouse, what we're going to sit down and talk about. So one of the top requests has been pattern design and kind of how we do that, what companies we work with. We figured for the third episode, let's just dive in, do some pattern work, show kind of what we do, some of these companies, and show a little bit of the process, along the way. So to do that, we got to have Jordan here. Jordan's like the pattern dude here at the office. When we're doing style guides and big kind of pattern projects, a lot of times we'll hand over the assets or just ask Jordan to handle the whole pattern side of that project. So Jordan's the man. We're gonna kind of rely on him to talk us through a lot of these patterns and how they were created and the backstory on some of this stuff. So as you know, we've done patterns for a ton of different companies and a lot of different industries. Some vectors, some Photoshop, kind of it runs the gamut. But we worked with like Universal Pictures on, and you've touched on pretty much all these. Jurassic Park, Kung Fu Panda, Minions. Worked with Viacom and Nickelodeon on some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff, SpongeBob, and then a lot of stuff for Nerf. Few Nike patterns. We did a couple patterns for Adidas that ended up on shoes. That we'll kind of show those. What else? Reebok, Nitro Circus, and kind of so on and so on. So I picked out some of the highlight ones. There's a lot missing in this episode, but we just want to give you kind of a brief overlook of some of the patterns we've done. So
Place to start.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So let's dive in. So an older one, but one that's kind of a favorite of ours, was an old Adidas pattern we did back in the day. So we got these shoes here, and we have that sweatshirt up there. So Adidas reached out and they wanted a pattern for their new season. They wanted it based on basically kind of this palm leaf type of pattern that they gave us a reference for. And I'll kind of show you here in the PDF. And we got this color palette and some references of like different patterns and leaves and palms and things like that. And we're asked to create a tileable pattern that was all vector that they were then going to use on shoes and
blow it out.
And, hats and sweatshirts and whatever. So you'll see kind of in this first slide, the color palette was, I would say, nasty. Like,
it's kind of weird,
right? That thing's
it's an eye catcher.
Yeah, it's a bit funky. So this was a Dustin pattern, so he kind of worked on this. It ended up kind of dragging on and on. They wanted, some of the leaves weren't exactly right, this and that, but in the end,
you can see where some like overlap or some just kind of go to the edge, and just finding that balance was part of that issue.
Exactly, where it looked, natural, almost, the one on the bottom left is almost a little bit too much like, hey, we threw a bunch of palm leaves on the ground, it almost looks like it was
puzzled together almost.
Yeah, too planned out. Dustin finally kind of found this happy medium here where it ended up being this final pattern that they used. Colorway is much better. They blew it out on shoes. They had jerseys, soccer jerseys, sweatpants, everything on this thing. So
dope.
Yeah, it was a good one. It's an old one, but it's something that, it's always cool when you get your pattern or design.
And when they run it like across multiple products and SKUs.
Yeah, it's what it's like when you do a pattern, you hope that they're gonna kind of use it and abuse it in a way. And blow it out on everything. So sometimes it's just like, hey, we need this pattern. It's just gonna be a panel on the side of a jersey or something in motocross. You're kind of like, damn, I spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
And that's the only place you use it.
Like a little background element, something subtle.
Exactly. So moving on here, this is a project for Disney. This was pretty much all Jordan here. We were asked they were doing a collab with NASCAR. And so it was basically cars, Disney cars / NASCAR. And so we built out a style guide. And with that guide came a bunch of patterns. What you're seeing here are these jackets and badges we basically created in the beginning. So this page 2 is some of your patterns from the beginning, right?
On the left, you got the one that's like a full kind of sticker bomb style, almost a toss pattern, and then the middle one is like a grid where you take some of the things almost like a checkerboard style, Then on the right one, it's like the things are spaced out a little bit more evenly, so you get a little variety in the 3 choices and stuff. So that's always one thing I try to do when we do make a kit of patterns for people and clients, is like to give them a variety of different options of things to at least talk about in the first conversation or the first round, because there's so many different ways you can build a pattern, you know. So coming up with different varieties always helps for them to respond and say, oh, we like this one because it's more organic, or we like this one because it has structure.
Usually with a project like this, they don't say, hey, we want camo patterns, or hey, we want, you know, a flannel look or whatever. Right. It's kind of like, hey, do some patterns.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, and you're kind of like, where do I start with that?
Yeah.
You know? So these can be challenging. Yeah, that's why I always feel kind of bad for you, because I'm like, Jordan, hey, you know, can you do all these patterns? And I'm kind of like, you know, where do you start?
How do you keep coming up with a different idea?
Exactly. It's tough. But then you have like something like this, which was the NASCAR. These were actually the NASCAR cars patterns. And this is a little different because now you're dealing with cars, Disney, and NASCAR. You got two giant companies that are competing for space in a pattern.
Yep, a collab, but no one wants to be the one that has more say or more power, visual power, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, so these are kind of challenging.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
we
have a ton of comps on these where you were making changes to the size of the car, size of the NASCAR logo.
Littler logo, bigger logo, all that.
So something like this, I mean, you're doing 100% in Illustrator, right?
Yep. And I use the swatch tool in Illustrator for these too. For me, it just helps in moving forward when I get like an edit, or somebody comes back with a critique and says, hey, let's tweak this little piece of the pattern. And then I can just go in there, you know, change the little bit, and then boom, the whole pattern just updates itself, instead of, you know, sometimes you can create like a little group of elements and then like copy and paste and click and drag them over, and then mask all that into a shape to make it look like a pattern. But like for me, it just works so much easier to use that swatch tool and make that pattern just a real pattern, and moving forward you can edit it pretty easy.
It makes your work like a lot faster, because in the past we'd basically make a square and we'd make a pattern that roughly fit in that square, crop it so the client would think it was a pattern.
Looks like one.
Yeah, basically send it off. If they approve it, then you go, okay, oh shit, now
I have to make it,
and now I need to figure this out. Which I've noticed over the years, you go right into the swatch, because I've sent you changes and you send them back right away, and I'm like, dude, what the? That was quick, you know, type of thing.
Right.
And it's because because you use the swatch pattern in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Coming back around and after it gets approved, and then being like, oh great, now I have to make this a real tileable pattern. It might not look exactly the way you had kind of originally copied and pasted in. Yeah.
We've run into that on a couple where we didn't do it that way.
Right.
Which got a little weird. This is another project. This was a huge project for G.I. Joe. The challenge was they wanted G.I. Joe patterns and Cobra patterns. And then inside those two brands, or you know, whatever you want to call them, they had all these different styles, basically. There was urban, jungle, sea, space, all this different stuff. But at the same time, it needed to look like urban G.I. Joe, jungle G.I. Joe, you know, space G.I. Joe. And then you guys had to stop and then go to, okay, now Cobra space, Cobra jungle.
The other side.
Yeah. So.
And 4 versions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what you're seeing here is this was kind of a big collab of basically almost everybody in the whole company kind of jumping in on this. I know Davey did some of these. Dustin did a lot.
Yep.
I don't think DeMasso and Brandon worked on it, but actually some of these birds might have been.
We might have used some elements.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think we had them draw some elements.
Yep.
This was a big one, and I think there's more. Yeah, so these are some of the other ones there. So you.
These ones included all the scales because they wanted the Cobra.
They wanted the Cobra scales on
right.
everything. So it was like, hey, we need this space pattern, Cobra, these colors with scales. It's like, whoa, the scale and the space.
All these worlds have to meet and make it look cool too.
Exactly. Yeah, make that shit look cool. So you guys did a great job. I mean, they were super stoked, and you can kind of see it in each of these patterns, you know, like what the vibe is, the color palette, and that whole deal.
Yeah.
So
it was a challenge, but it was fun for sure, and it's a cool, you know, client to work with as always.
Yeah. Yep.
These guys are dope.
Yeah. So I think they narrowed it down to like 3 or 4 per category, and then we had to tile those out. So moving on, Marvel 500. So this is a project that comes from years ago from the old studio where we worked on the logo and developed the packaging. And then at Lincoln, we've been asked over the years to basically update the pattern for a while there, it was like every 3 or 4 months. I don't even know if they're making these anymore, but they're back. So Jordan is always tasked with doing these patterns. So,
and this is one that's more subtle, you know, in the background, kind of how we were talking earlier. It's like you spend all this time and then it just kind of is in the back and you don't see it too much, but
yeah, and you're kind of like, damn, I stressed out on that one name, and is anybody noticing
exactly
that? But each time, so I think it's every 3 months, they basically update the names. Like who's ever in this pack, their name has to be on this pattern in the background. So Jordan would get a list of names and then have to basically develop a pattern with those names. And the names needed to all be custom, whether it was Iron Man or whatever. So you can see some of that here. And they would repeat at times. Like you'd get a pack 2 times in a row that both had Iron Man, and they're like, hey, it needs to look a little different than the one last time.
You're like, wait, I already made Iron Man.
Yeah. So
come up with something new. But don't spend a ton of time.
Exactly. And
turn them out.
It's one of those things where you got, you have 10 names in a pattern. You can't spend 4 or 5 hours on one name, even though it is its own little logo.
Right. Right.
Like,
and then when you hear Iron Man, you're like, well, dang, I gotta make Iron Man look cool. Exactly. Or Spider-Man, you're like, shit, I gotta come with it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So those ones are a bit challenging.
Yep.
Moving on, so we have Viacom. So we work with Nickelodeon and Viacom on multiple different projects, but they came to us looking for a pattern in their headquarters in New York. They gave us a list of their properties that they wanted to highlight: Top Gun, MTV, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, SpongeBob, just a bunch of different properties. So these guys kind of all dug in and basically did badges, little illustrations, type lockups, things like that to build out, to make basically a huge pattern. They had some references for different patterns kind of done like this, where you are doing a bunch of icons. But
one color, that's kind of a hard part, to keep things simple and still readable of what it is,
Yeah. So I think most of this stuff ended up being you and Davey in this final pattern that you've seen here, the black and white version. So to me, this stuff, and I've done some pattern work, and this is the shit where you're asked to take, there's probably 50, 60 different little illustrations, icons, things like that. And you're basically supposed to make them all fit and look like they sit together, even though some of the line weights are different, whatever.
Contrast is a little different on some. Some might have a little more black in them.
So this to me is challenging, because you look at this and you got to kind of look back and go, okay, is that sitting right next to that
Blur
one?
your eyes a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that can take a while. So moving on to the next one. So Monster Energy, we work with them on a bunch of different projects, but we basically built out a pattern kit for them that they could then use in advertising, in-store displays, kind of whatever.
That's a fun one. You get to go a little crazier on this stuff than some of the other ones. Have a little grunge in there and stuff like that. So,
which I feel like the grunge sometimes can help.
It does
make the pattern or hide things in a way.
Totally. It's like a little eye piece, eye candy for you to grab into. Some interest.
All right, so here's another fun one. So Masters of the Universe, He-Man. I don't know if anybody remembers that. I've been seeing it around more and more lately.
It's coming back.
It's kind of like the fashion thing now or whatever. I keep seeing it, and we've done a bunch of different pieces over the last probably year and a half with Mattel and Masters of the Universe. So we did a big guide with them, and Jordan did all the patterns, and these are super fun. Like the heads, the colored heads.
That is fun.
Yeah, that thing's amazing. Yeah, but this was one where you had to build out a lot of different things, like that top right one. You had nothing but a logo,
right?
He-Man and Skeletor.
You're like, all right, let's make something out of nothing, It's like, here, let me arrange this. There's a little pocket. Oh, I need to add something in there, So yeah, that is always a adventure.
Yeah. So stuff like this Masters of the Universe, on certain style guides and things like this, we'll be asked to take this and then show how it's going to get used, whether it's going to be, say, full bleed on a skateboard, backpack, whatever. So depending on the company and the ask for that project, at times we'll be the first one to actually, or or Dustin would be the first one to actually take these patterns and try and use them.
Right, right. So, show them the application.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where I feel like you're in a good spot to set it up right. And if you set it up right and do it right, like applying it to a panel in a backpack is super simple.
Totally.
You got your swatch, so you're just click and drop.
And then you can scale it how big you want the pattern to sit within that shape, or, you know, because if you're just tied to taking your little copied and pasted step and repeat shapes, then you'll have to like make a huge swatch of that if you want them to like sit smaller inside your cropped piece or whatever.
Totally. Yep. I didn't know, like when I first started using the swatches and I'd scale it up and down and it wasn't scaling. You know, I'm like, this doesn't work.
Yeah, that little window.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. I'm like, what the hell? Like I can't scale this thing. It's staying the same size, yet I want it in a small ass shape.
Yep.
Until I found that, you know, whatever that little click,
there's a little dialog box with one little check mark in there. It's like scale patterns versus scale objects or something like that.
It's always those things like in Illustrator and stuff where you're like, this should work, and then you figure out, oh, well, it does. The button's there. Just you got to figure out.
It was me.
You got to Google that shit or whatever. You know, so this was a pattern here for Hot Wheels that Davey tackled.
Gnarly.
They wanted it basically on a grid, you know, on a plane, isometric layout of Hot Wheels tracks and some of their play sets. So they had photos of the play sets, and, you know, being the client that obviously builds these play sets, so they know exactly what, you know, how it works and how it connects and this and that. So Davey had to draw these, you know, basically in Illustrator, single line, pin line.
It's almost like a schematic.
It is.
You know, like
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like an engineering style drawing.
Yep. Yeah, he crushed it on this. Like this was tough. And then from that, they basically, Davey built out a pattern that was then used as a trade show booth for Mattel and Hot Wheels. So that's kind of the end product. You can kind of see where the track goes, ends at the cars, but it's one giant loop that kind of never ends, you know?
And like all the cars are drawn at the same angle, you know? It's like, that's a lot.
Yeah. That's a good one. So another little project here for Nerf and Ninja, the video game dude. So he was supposed to do a whole line of Nerf guns with Hasbro and Nerf. So we were asked to do the packaging as well as develop patterns and icons and things for that. That didn't end up happening. He actually ended up going with a different company. But these are some of those patterns. Davey did the illustrations of Ninja's head.
Yep.
And basically he gives those to you and then you build out the rest of it.
Yep. Unlike that top one, yeah, for sure. I think I got like a pack of like 4 or 5 heads looking in different directions, and then obviously I have the Ninja and Nerf logo in my set that came from the client. So I'm like, all right, well, let's take these and create something cool. So then, you know, you start layering stuff up, throw a little Ninja star in there or something. But yeah, take what I can get from Davey, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Any assets help.
And then like so these the two on the right, like I get those, you know, those are basically 2-color. Well, all 3 of them are 2-color, but that top left one, so that's multiple layers. Like on those are a little tougher, right?
That might be, depending on, you know, how you set it up. You could do the heads all as one pattern on one swatch, and then create like those blue and yellow shapes on another layer below or something like that. I honestly think that one was all in one swatch. Okay. Yeah. But that is a technique I use quite a bit. Like, for example, in like some of the Jurassic Park or ones that have like a lot of, or ones that have some of that grit too. Yeah. The files can get gnarly, and like once you like put too much stuff into one pattern swatch, you're like running heavy on your machine. So you try to like think smarter and build up a pattern with 3 patterns instead of just one swatch, you know. So that helps.
That's cool. We at some point we're gonna probably do some like more class type stuff, and I'd love to sit down and kind of, you know, with you and basically go through the A to Z step of building like that pattern, or, you know, with
the swatch tool and everything. Pattern maker.
I think that'd be super helpful for you know, some people. So
that
stuff will come in the future. But yeah, we'll definitely.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. So here's a project for Nitro Circus. We did we worked with them a couple of years back on a bunch of different apparel and things. Two large pattern packs. One was this floral pattern pack that they were asking for. The second one was just kind of like full, you know, contemporary patterns.
Nitro vibes.
Yeah. Where this one was a bit different. They wanted Nitro Circus plus floral. So this is a look at what we did for that. And I think it turned out great.
Yeah,
me too. It's kind of
this
mix of, you know, their logo with some different flowers and things that we drew.
Yep.
And I mean, I could see that, you know, on a shirt like you're wearing there. Like, would look freaking amazing. So
you still see some of their Nitro coming through, their voice in there too.
Yep. And then from there, we went on to this full graphics pattern, which is more standard based. You know, grunge, a little roughed up, vector patterns, kind of ton of overlays. And then after that, then we kind of threw in some illustrated patterns. So the two on the left, Damaso did, kind of a fun, almost, I don't know even what you would call that. He kind of has this cool little style where he does these little illustrations that kind of drip into each other. You know?
Right, they blend over.
Mm-hmm. And it creates this cool, like, one color pattern.
Yep.
So
like
and then,
little mini scenes. Kinda,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll have like a guy on a dirt bike cruising and he heads to the beach and whatever. So yeah, that's cool. And then you did the one on the right.
Yep.
Which is, that one's cool. That's solid with the grunge and the full moto vibe and all that. So yeah, these are cool.
Busting out the markers for that one.
Or, did you? Really? Yeah.
Back before I had
paper?
the iPad.
Yeah, before the iPad.
was,
That's right. Yeah. So moving on, Transformers. We've done a ton of patterns for Transformers. Everything for packaging, trade show booths, boxes, style guides, kind of whatever. Everyone's pitched in on different ones. Like these here, I think were all done by Damaso, with, you know, taking basically that logo and drawing the drips and the warping from logo to logo, which that one on the left, that red and black one, whew,
so good.
Yeah, that thing's so
That's
good.
Damaso all day.
It is, yeah. Let him get a little weird with the drips and whatnot, like, and he kills it on that.
Does.
So, and then on this page, you can kind of tell and see how these are used. So apparel, you know, cropping into hats, t-shirts, as well as, you know, the background pattern for packaging, you know, different toys, things like that. So, and then, you know, they will supply these in a style guide where these will go out to a licensee or something, and they can use that background for whatever they want. You know, they can print patterns, they can put it on whatever, scooter or whatever.
Another asset.
Yep. So this was a full kit we did for Transformers, which was a summer, I forgot what the actual name of the style guide was, but it was basically like California 80s summer collides with Transformers.
It wasn't Cyber, or wait, what is the Cyber Surfer?
That was just one of the names
that's
they
one.
came up
Okay.
with. Yeah. That might have been the name of the guide.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I can't remember what the actual guide name was, but this was a cool one because it was basically like, hey, smash the Transformers, you know, Optimus Prime, and those dudes in Bumblebee with California beach scene back in the 80s. So these are all patterns that Jordan did. Him and Davey did a bunch of icons and badges at the bottom. And so, like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is your starting point. It's kind of at the bottom there.
Right.
Where you get some badges, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then from that's like the ideal thing you get. And then from that you go, okay, cool, now I need to build some patterns.
Yep. It's like, how can I take these and like be inspired by them to create something that fills a whole page or whatever, you know? So it's like, for example, that one icon on the left has a little checker pattern in the back, and that Cyber Surfer one has a little bit of a dot pattern thing going on, you know, and there's those squiggle lines behind the skateboard. So it's like taking things from those and maybe using that as a background element to push it further and create space, or just to eat up space, you know, and make something visual out of it all and start layering that way. And so starting with like pieces, you know, it always helps to have some assets to base it off of, instead of just being like, all right, what am I going to start my pattern from scratch, you know? And
exactly.
Your wheels are spinning.
Yep. So moving on, some Transformers Ghostbusters. This was all you as well.
Yep.
This was more Photoshop.
This one was, yeah.
They wanted kind of a metal.
Yeah, this is a vector one.
Yeah.
Vector one.
Yeah, that thing's fun.
What was the collab for that on?
So that was Transformers Ghostbusters, and it was for Comic-Con.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We did the packaging for it, and it was basically a white and red.
With the backpack.
Yeah, it was a backpack that was supposed to be the freaking gun or whatever.
We'll be showing these guys that thing one day.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so moving on. So kind of what you've seen with, you know, up until this point with, you know, all these brands and all these patterns is they're very vector heavy, you know, done in Illustrator, tileable, you know, a standard traditional pattern. Like the most useful thing, you know, you can do with a pattern is have that thing in Illustrator at the end.
Yeah.
We have a few clients that we do patterns for that are a bit out of the box. One of them being Hemlock Hat Company, which are these here. Put these up here. So Hemlock is a hat company out of California that basically makes these cool beach hats. And on the bottom of each beach hat, you know, there's a theme, a pattern, and then on the front, there's usually a patch that kind of has the same pattern that goes with the bottom. So we've been working with them for a while now in creating these patterns for the hats. And something like this, a pattern like this, is a bit different and handled a lot different, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This is stuff that usually Damaso and Brandon do. It's more of an illustration piece than it is, I would say, a pattern.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So like you can see on some of these, so here's 6 hats that we did basically the illustrations for. Some of these, like top left one with those fish, like that was actually a square pattern that Brandon did, and then they cropped it into their basically their donut, you know, which that is a tough shape to work with. Like we thought skateboards were shitty. Like this is
it's like a skate wheel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're basically creating a giant skate wheel, you know. So over the years of working with them, we've handled some of the hats a little bit different, where the actual illustration is drawn a bit more around the circle.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be this full square pattern a lot of times. In the beginning, that's what they wanted. They wanted just a full-on pattern so they could kind of move it around and figure it out where, you know,
look best.
Where it goes. But since then, we've got, you know, we have their templates and we work a little bit more in that shape. So like the one on the right there, that shark, I mean, that was drawn around that shape. And there it is. There's like a big version of that. So, I mean, you can see it's just a Damaso just crushing an amazing illustration of like 10 sharks.
So awesome.
Crazy.
All fit in there perfect.
Yeah, yep. And then this hula one, like whether it's Hemlock or Roosevelt that we'll talk about, a lot of this is just a giant art piece. Like I would hang the hula girl illustration like in my house. Like that thing's amazing.
Killer.
These are a bit different. There's all Photoshop. Nothing's really tiling at this point on these hats.
Full color.
Yep.
No limit.
Yep. CMYK. Fully airbrushed. You got the fruit hat. So then moving on from the Hemlock stuff, we'll dive into Roosevelt. So Roosevelt's a great client for us. We do a ton of work with them. We're both wearing our pattern Lincoln shirts.
They're comfy too.
Yeah, super comfy. Great shirts. If you guys haven't checked them out, jump online, check it out. They reach out to us for a ton of different patterns. A lot of their stuff is a little bit more tiled out, but it is done in Photoshop. But they do have like this square grid where Damaso and Brandon will do this illustration that is then cropped basically with this large bleed to this square, so that when they get it, they can tile it themselves.
That's like the old school way.
Yeah. So because it's a Photoshop file and it's so heavy, it kind of has to be done like that. And then these guys are printing on like big rolls of basically, you know,
materials.
So it's like almost a big, large format digital print, you know. So they're just looking for this pattern that can go, you know, whatever it is, say 50 inches wide by 400 long, you know, on this roll. So, and then they'll come back and cut out all the pieces, and it's full custom cut. And so, but these are great. We've had the opportunity to work on so many different properties and different things.
Yeah, they've got some cool licenses. For sure.
Like even on this page, the top left is Lincoln. So they wanted a Lincoln pattern, which, you know, made sense for us.
Is that your little... The koozies.
Yeah. So here's koozie. So they make these bitchin' koozies as well. And then they have. So this is the Lincoln pattern. This is the Lincoln pattern we did for them. So this. So a pattern like this too. The way that Brandon will do it. This is actually 2 different patterns. So there's the dark red underneath, which is actually logs and shit that he drew, one color, and then on top he did all the little pieces. So then they can move everything around, kind of determine what fits and what doesn't fit. And then they make sure like that on the pocket, like it's not just random.
Right.
Like, they'll make sure that on the pocket, like something.
It's a good crop.
Yeah, something good is there.
Yep.
So.
Not just random.
Yeah.
Cut off heads.
Yeah, because if you can't control that, a lot of companies they'll crop whatever in the pocket. You know, you'll get a shirt that looks bitchin', another one that has some weird shit.
Totally.
Half cut off. So.
Yep.
So on this page we have the Lincoln, they did a whole USA kind of kit, which actually that one is from there. We'll get to that at the end because that's got a little story that goes with that. But that was from the USA 4th of July kit we did for them. And then the two on the right are Back to the Future. So those were rad, you know.
Super cool.
Yeah, those are all custom little illustrations that Damaso did.
That's
pretty
cool to
gnarly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, each one is basically its own T-shirt.
Yeah.
You know, and
each
then,
piece.
Yeah, each piece.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So I'll show a little more detail on those, and then
it's cool because I mean these tees they do hold up the quality and print very well. Like the detail on some of these are pretty crazy.
Yeah. No fading or anything really. Like it's a legit product.
Yeah.
And then, so for this Christmas, we had the chance to do this one. This is the banger.
Christmas Vacation, baby.
Christmas Vacation. You can't go wrong with this.
Classic.
So this one, we have this one here. So Damaso did all this, you know, fully painted in Photoshop. This is a good one.
Yep.
Don't you have a mug with
Timeless.
this on it?
Yep.
You got the mug with the
shitter was full.
Yeah, the shitter's full, right? That's on here somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah, he's pumping it.
Yep.
Pumping it there. So, yeah. This is where it's cool because every project we do for them, it's like usually a new property or just the idea.
New license.
Like, yeah. It's kind of like, oh shit, that's great.
Yep. Keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, exactly. Here's another one. So this is Sandlot, the movie Sandlot. So another Damaso piece, fully illustrated. This was more of a poster print that they wanted, and then from that we built out the pattern. And then here's a recent one that actually just came out. It just dropped yesterday. So Goonies, can't go wrong with Goonies.
Love the Goonies.
I mean, even especially being up here in the Northwest, and it was shot out in Astoria, and the house is out there. Just a classic movie. They have a lot of movie license, so getting like some of these projects, like, oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy. So this was Brandon. You can see on this piece, the pencil sketch on the left is the character art, and then the pencil sketch on the right is basically the dark gray background pattern, similar to this Lincoln one back here. It was basically 2 layers of pattern, you know, so you can almost say twice the illustration, you know, work. But yeah, it turned out good. Fully kind of airbrushed, sketched in Photoshop, and then here's a detailed shot of those illustrations. The thing that gets weird with these when you're dealing with like the movie properties is this has to go back to the studio.
Oh yeah, and get approved by them.
Yeah, they need to approve it. They need to approve the character likeness and all that. So some of these can drag on. Some of them you'll get some weird notes back, like, hey, you need to change this.
Yep.
We did one for The Shining where we couldn't show like Jack Nicholson's face, and so we couldn't really show anybody's face. But they wanted to
dumb it down a little bit.
Yeah, they wanted to suggest the whole scene, you know? So,
yep.
So Brandon's like struggling with how much face is too much, you know,
yep.
and just these heavy shadows covering the guy's face. So that can be a challenge when dealing with, you know, the movie industry and just people's, you know, photography and things like that. So, and here's their marketing for the Goonies collection. And then, so back to this one. So this, like I said, was part of the American, it was like USA 4th of July kit that we did for him. It was 3 different patterns. One of them being, well, it was this like eagle pattern. The other one being Teddy Roosevelt, and then this one. And so like you see here, this was kind of cool because they made the shirt, which is back there. You know, so those two bad boys are from the USA kit. So they made this shirt, and then not too long later, we saw a couple photos of LeBron James wearing a face mask with that pattern on it, and we're like, "Oh shit, that's cool."
LeBron.
You gotta love that.
Yeah.
So.
Just scrolling through the gram, you're like, "Whoa, that's us!"
Yeah,
on his face.
Yeah, that's sick.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, so that's always cool to see your stuff, you know, out there on a celebrity or whatever.
Totally.
And then it's cool when they blow it out with a koozie and all that. So like these koozies are amazing.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah. And then here at the end, here we have just some other ones we did for them. The Shining is down on the left. WWE, a couple of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then we get fun stuff like The Office. We've done a couple patterns for The Office, so those are fun. And then Step Brothers and Damaso's doing all these with the full Photoshop illustrations. So yeah, it's kind of it, you know, on the patterns. It's kind of, we handle them kind of almost as 2 different projects, 2 different processes. You know, the stuff that you do is definitely more traditional pattern work, and, you know, is very, very much what people expect, you know, when they get a pattern, which is great. Where this stuff,
industry standard.
Yeah, exactly. So where this stuff is, to me, I handle it as, as the project manager and stuff like that. It's more like a big illustration in a way, and that's how these guys have to handle it.
Yep.
So, but it ends up getting used as a pattern, whether it's on a hat or a koozie or a button up, whatever. In the end, it is a pattern, so
one piece.
So, we've gotten a lot of people asking in the past, like, how would you create that? How would you do a pattern like that? And, there's no easy way to do it when dealing with this. It's just all illustration. You got to be able to do that illustration.
Exactly.
You can't create that pattern, and even with your stuff, I mean, it's not, your stuff to me is, like I said, it's so useful. That to me is like your pattern. That's exactly what you want as a company when you think pattern. You want something that you can get that file, you can grab that swatch, you can click and fill,
scale it, whatever. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope that kind of helps explain, what we do as far as patterns go and stuff like that. Like I said, I'd love to do an episode where we sit down with you at your computer and you go through the whole process of, setting up that swatch.
Yeah, totally.
Changing the sizes and building even, a flat one versus, the layers and kind of adding that grunge to it. Cause I mean, I think it's definitely cool. And the way you have it set up and the way you do it is so efficient that I think a lot of people could learn a lot of shit from it.
Yeah.
So
totally down for that.
Cool. I wanted to talk about real quick, coming out on Monday the 8th. Yeah, I think Monday the 8th. Yeah, February is flying by.
Wow.
Monday, February 8th, we're gonna have a podcast dropping. So I sat down with DGDC Podcast. So I think it's DGDC Pod on Instagram, and sat down with those guys and basically talked about, design, career, business, we talked about the chop up and how this got started, why we're doing it, and how it is going, at this point. So it was cool to dive into that. Super cool people behind the scenes there. You have Nick Longo, Jordan Wilson. Jordan Wilson kills it with the craft beer stuff here locally. Yep. He's out of Portland. And then you have Michelle Morrison. She, I think she's up in Seattle. She was great. Super, super cool to talk to. So yeah, check that out. That comes out Monday morning, February 8th. So yeah, we'll have another podcast out there.
Right on.
Cool.
Content.
Yep. Content. Yep.
Always bumping.
Gotta get it out there now that we're all stuck at home.
That's right.
Yeah.
Staying busy.
Yep. Cool. Last thing on the list, hats. So we did this episode last week that we put out on Scout, on kind of our partnership with Scout and how we work with them on things. And so they produced a bunch of new hats for us. So I just wanted to kind of show those real quick and see what you guys think. So we have the draw shit hat here that is new from them. So this thing, we made which it's not up there anymore, but we made a little mini banner through felt banner through Division Co. that basically said the same thing, draw shit. So thought it was fitting to have the draw shit hat. So we got that. That thing's in the store now. We have a standard kind of corduroy hat here with the logo.
Yeah, that corduroy's money.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a nice like thin. It's kind of a small corduroy.
Yeah, it's not so loud.
Yeah, it's not super gnarly. Yep. Like you almost can't tell till you get up close.
Yep.
So that thing turned out pretty good. And then a standard kind of trucker hat, out on the farm hat.
That's
like
right.
This is like the farm dude hat when you're drinking your Budweiser and on your tractor. This is the one you wear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this will be a good one for the little retreat we got coming up.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be kind of out in the woods out there, so that'll be cool.
Stoked.
Yeah. So yeah, that's about it. Just wanted to share some of that stuff with you guys today, and let us know what you think. So comment, subscribe, all that YouTube
all that
jargon.
Stuff. Yep. Do it all.
Yeah.
Get active.
Yeah, we'll reply back, and then hopefully take some of your comments and notes like this, and make an episode out of what you guys want to see, and what you want to learn from us. So cool. Thank you guys.
Later, guys.